Welcome back one last time to The Way Out. We've covered a lot of important knowledge in the previous videos. In the last video, we looked at the most important solution to our current condition. In this final part, we will look at some things that we can do in our own lives to help us get to where we need to be to start doing the great work. And as always, it begins within. These solutions are not exclusively external things we can do. The first solutions start within the self. So we all know this allegory from the Matrix movies. Applied to our world today, the blue pill is believing that government is good, believing the world is fine the way it is, and accepting everything like a willing slave. The red pill is seeing through the illusion and realizing the situation we're in as a species, right? That's the gist of it. So, of course, you want to take the red pill so that you can see the truth and understand what's really going on, but we have to take it a step further. You can take the red pill and understand what's going on externally, the wars, manipulation, fear-mongering, and so on, but still be blue-pilled about true spiritual awakening. You have to take it to a higher level, a level of action. What are you creating? What are you doing to help turn the tide? Are you just sponging up information and saying, look at all the stuff I know about the New World Order? Or are you doing something to actually change things? And after you've come to that fork in the road between the red pill and the blue pill, and you take the red pill, well, there's yet another fork coming up. Now you're standing before the black pill and the gold pill. The sad thing is, most people choose the black pill. When you take that one, you're ultimately saying, fuck taking real world action and doing the right thing. Fuck putting my creativity to work in the world to try to inspire others to change. We're all just screwed and doomed, and I'm too much of a coward to do anything. Poor, powerless little me. I'm just going to make myself comfortable here in hell and fuck everyone else. And that's just sad. That's the ego, the me, screw everyone else mindset, and we want to move away from that. So the gold pill is what shadow work will lead you to. The gold pill is being truly honest with yourself, activating yourself, and doing the great work to end slavery. It starts with shadow work. No more excuses, no more lying to yourself, no more cowardice, no more bullshit. Shadow work, which we'll get into, is what you need to force upon yourself so you never take the black pill. If you know what's going on and you have knowledge to share that can help others awaken, you do not have the right to sit on that and do nothing. Knowing that evil is running amok and doing nothing to change that situation is evil in and of itself. The gold pill, sadly, is the one most people want nothing to do with because it comes with personal responsibility and true self-respect. It makes you stop pointing the finger outward and back towards the self and saying, what have I done to improve things? How am I creating change? What am I doing to inspire others? And once you've done that inner work, the next step is action, becoming an active moral educator and teacher of natural law principles. That's the wisdom step of the trivium. Know, understand, act. If you're not gold-pilled, you're still part of the problem. We need to remove all the erroneous thinking from our own psyche and then help others start that process too. This is about developing true self-respect, which we accomplish by doing the required internal work upon ourselves called shadow work. And once we've done that, we can truly start saying no and take real-world action. We also need to stop putting the cart before the horse. Most people who say they want freedom falsely believe that the solution lies in creating something new, such as new systems of organization, new currencies, new technologies, etc. These things are not the solution. Such measures will always be doomed to fail if we attempt to place them first. And I see this all the time. It's fine to come up with these ideas for when we finally do have real freedom in the world, but they are not the solution. They are ancillary to the solution. We need to put principles first. Principles, first things, must be learned and made common sense knowledge first, before anything can succeed in the long term. In fact, the very first principle is natural law. Very few people are involved in accomplishing this first through moral education. And you might notice that most of the solutions are not about new things we need to do or new systems we need to create. They're about what we need to stop doing. When we stop doing the wrong things, then we can properly implement what's good, whether short-term or long-term, but especially long-term. And speaking of principles, here are the 2 pillars of enlightenment, which I've mentioned a number of times before. This is about understanding both the sacred feminine principle of non-aggression and the sacred masculine principle of self-defense. No enlightened or awakened human being has only a halfway understanding of these. The understanding has to be total. It has to be complete on both sides, both principles, for someone to consider themselves truly awake. The sacred feminine, or non-aggression principle, is the first pillar of enlightenment. It states, do not engage in violence. Very simple. Because violence is always immoral, and you never have a right to engage in it. So in other words, do not immorally initiate non-rightful use of physical power to coerce, constrain, or compel the rightful physical behavior or free will choice of another sentient being. That is the non-aggression principle. Don't attack someone else. Don't stop someone else from engaging in their behavior if their behavior wasn't violent. Second pillar of enlightenment is the sacred masculine principle, also called the self-defense principle. This principle states sentient beings have the inherent right to use force to defend themselves from violence conducted upon them by another. But many people have a problem with this one, and there's a reason that this is so ingrained in the population, because dominators, or the people who claim that they are our authority, want to claim that they have a 100% monopoly on the usage of physical force, that no one else can engage in physical force in a defensive capacity as a right, which they naturally possess, that you have to defer to someone else and get them to do that for you if you're accosted by violence. And we see this messaging all the time in movies and TV shows. Someone gets assaulted, usually a woman, and they kill their assailant, and then the police show up and arrest them for murder. I've seen it over and over. If someone were to start treating you violently, attacking you, coercing you, trying to put you under duress or threat of violence if you don't comply with their will, you have a right to physically defend yourself. You first have a right to say no, and then if the attack continues, you have a right to put them down by whatever amount of force is required to do that. Never forget that right. And both of these principles have to be in effect. That's what real enlightenment looks like. It means you're not engaged in violence at all. It means you're not going to conduct it, but you're not going to take it either. So you could say it's do no harm, but take no shit. Live and let live as long as no harm is being done. And that leads us to the only moral path, anarchy. And we've talked about this in the previous video. Anarchy, derived from the Greek prefix an, meaning without or absence of, and the Greek noun archon, meaning ruler or master. We need to understand that there really is only one moral path, and we do that when we understand natural law principles, when we understand objective morality fully. That's when we stop believing in the legitimacy of government and authority. You can't be a moral being and still believe that it's morally okay for some people to rule others. Anarchy is the only moral path. Anarchy is a state of existence in which individuals are not ruled or enslaved by others and are free to exercise their natural rights unrestrained by violence, duress, or coercion. This state can only be created and maintained via behavioral alignment to objective morality through a deep understanding of natural law. And if you don't like the word anarchy, then here's another option: voluntarism. Voluntarism is the doctrine that relations among people should be by mutual consent, or not at all. Voluntarism does not argue for the specific form that voluntary arrangements will take, only that unrightful force be abandoned so that individuals in society may flourish. As it is the means which determine the end, the goal of all voluntary society must be sought voluntarily. People cannot be coerced into freedom. So, either way, voluntarism or anarchy, it's the same philosophy. Ultimately, the underlying solution to all of our suffering is a spiritual solution. Something has to change within you. All freedom begins within. There will never be a political, financial, or technological solution to our condition of human slavery. We must become truly enlightened regarding objective morality and natural law first. Then we must get involved in the great work of teaching this knowledge to others. If you're not free within, and you don't have a higher spiritual understanding of reality and its laws, you're not going to create freedom without. Reality is a reflection of the self. We are co-creators of this human condition. That's why we call this work the great work, because we need that critical mass awakening. We need to awaken the true self. So let's compare the difference between the false self and the true self. The false self does not understand or respect the self-ownership and sovereignty of all beings. The false self does not understand natural law and lives in opposition with it due to ignorance. It lives in dualism, perpetual contradiction between thought, emotion, and action. It cannot envision true freedom, seeking only to control. It is completely attached to a false separation worldview. It exists in mental schism. A divide between the right and left brains, and deep ego identification. The false self accepts and reinforces institutionalized belief systems that hold us back in consciousness, and is completely unconcerned with the suffering of others, thinks only about the self, the me mindset. But the true self understands and respects the self-ownership and sovereignty of all beings. The true self understands natural law and strives to live in harmony with it at all times. Strives to live in non-contradiction in thought, emotion, and action. Unity consciousness. It understands, espouses, and works toward true freedom. The true self's worldview reflects the understanding that there is no real separation between self and others. This is the law of one. It doesn't exist in a mental schism or ego ID. It seeks to break down institutionalized belief systems that hold back consciousness and is concerned with the alleviation of suffering for all beings. And most of humanity is not being their true self. Most are in a state of self-loathing, and they may not be conscious of it though. Self-loathing is the underlying psychological condition that causes people to falsely give away their personal responsibility to exercise conscience, ultimately becoming order followers who try to justify wrongdoing. Just as it is not possible for an order follower to exercise conscience, it is not possible for them to truly love themselves. Self-loathing is created when an earlier trauma has been suppressed and buried in the subconscious mind instead of being confronted, dealt with, and healed. Such trauma could take the form of feelings of inadequacy, whether real, suggested, or imagined. And the way out of this mindset is through true self-respect. This is how we heal self-loathing. Respect, from the Latin prefix re, meaning again, and the Latin verb spectare, meaning to look at. The human awakening process always begins with the development of true self-respect. This means that we are re-examining ourselves, our worldview, our mindset, our beliefs, and our behaviors. Then, as we see ourselves with new eyes, we willfully decide to change these things about ourselves. In doing so, we recreate who we are in this world. And this is one of the hardest things to do, to face all of the things that hold us back in consciousness, to say the words, "I was wrong," and then change how we think, feel, and act. But it has to be done. And part of the self-respect process, or the shadow work process, is letting go of ego attachments. Ego attachment is a mindset that is basically a religion. It is clinging on to beliefs and ideals, either about the world or the self, regardless of what is true. So, dogmatic religious beliefs, social traditions and culture, political affiliations, the "I am a" mindset, the Dunning-Kruger effect. To begin the process of shedding ego attachment, one must develop the ability to say one of the hardest things in the world: "I was wrong." And what's especially problematic to me is our obsessive identification with the physical body, thinking that's the totality of who and what you are. And I was guilty of this myself. It was a bad time of my life, and I got caught up in delusions of identity. I had to do a lot of shadow work to get to where I am now. Now, I'm not saying that having an identity is bad, nor am I saying that the ego is bad. These things are part of the human experience. They help us navigate the world as individuals. The problem is when that's all we think we are, when we obsess over race, or gender, or sexuality, or even profession, or religion, or being a mother or father. These are only aspects of your experience. They're not who you are. When you believe that and say, "I am a white person," or "I am a queer person," or "I am this gender or that gender," you're limiting yourself, placing yourself into a box and slapping a label on it. When you say the words, "I am," you need to consider so much more than just the physical body. I am consciousness, having an experience in a physical domain. I am a spark of the divine. I am a sovereign spiritual being. But that's not what the social engineers want. They want us deeply ensconced in ego and counterproductive pride. So just real quick, let's review these 9 so-called sins of Satanism. So these sins are what Satanists forbid for themselves, but want to peddle to everyone else to make them easier to manipulate and control. Let's go through each one. Stupidity. That's the first thing they want the public to be. They don't want to be stupid. They want to have all the knowledge and then hold it back from everyone else. 2. Pretentiousness. In other words, being fake and vain and acting like you deserve more than you really do. 3. Solipsism. The belief that truth is non-existent, that it's all just perception. My truth, her truth, their truth. Satanists don't think the truth doesn't exist. They want to understand it and keep it from other people, so they can control those people who are in that level of ignorance. So they want to peddle solipsism to others, and it's especially prominent in the New Age movement. But it's everywhere. 4. Self-deceit. Lying to yourself. 5. Herd conformity. They don't consider themselves members of the human herd. They want everyone else to be herd conformists. They want to be the farmers who rule the herd. 6. Lack of perspective. In other words, confusion, narrow-mindedness, having distorted views about things. 7. Forgetfulness of past orthodoxies. This is about accepting broken or flawed ideologies that have been repackaged into something quote-unquote new. In other words, believing in bullshit because it appeals to you emotionally, and you didn't recognize it as bullshit. Kind of like politics, right? The same garbage gets sold to us over and over, and we keep falling for it. 8. Counterproductive pride. This is the sin that applies to this section. This is pride to the point of abandoning reason, like pride in one's identity, rather than genuine pride in one's purpose. Real pride is about feeling good because you accomplished something. Being a particular race, gender, or sexuality is not an accomplishment. Gay pride, trans pride, Jewish pride, white pride, this is all counterproductive pride, rooted completely in the ego. And then lastly, lack of aesthetics. This is all about uniformity and sameness, no individuality or expression, and it ties in with herd conformity. So do you see how these sins and the other satanic tenets play out in the world? We are a satanic society, and we need to heal that. And again, we do that through shadow work. We need to take a long look at ourselves in the mirror, develop some real self-respect, and start doing the necessary inner work to heal the mind and soul. We need to stop telling ourselves nonsense just because it makes us feel good in the moment. Do you want to do that work and stop lying to yourself? Or do you want to continue to believe in psyops? That's one of the first steps of shadow work. Stop lying to yourself. Here's a quote by Dostoevsky. "Above all, do not lie to yourself. A man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to a point where he does not discern any truth, either in himself or anywhere around him, and thus falls into disrespect toward himself and others, and not respecting anyone, he ceases to love." Absolutely true. Think about all the things you think you want, and ask yourself this question. Is that really what you want deep down? Or are you lying to yourself? Contemplate this question and answer it honestly. And if there are things you truly do want, like freedom, peace, prosperity, equality, and so on, you need to come to understand what the actual real-world requirements are to attain them, instead of buying into some ideology or political rhetoric. This connects to that satanic sin about forgetfulness of past orthodoxies. We keep buying into dangerous BS because it's been repackaged, rebranded, renamed, and repolished. So we fall for it over and over and over again, thinking it'll work this time. So stop the magical thinking. What we say we want doesn't just magically manifest on its own. Real world goals require real-world requirements. Listen to what Buckminster Fuller said. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. In other words, stop using broken tools to fix broken systems. Stop slapping duct tape on garbage and calling it new and improved. Stop falling for this shit. Do the inner work to heal yourself first. Stop lying to yourself. Stop the wishful thinking and activate the true self. And use the Trivium method too. Another part of shadow work is in the integration of the shadow self. The shadow self can be described as a seemingly dark or negative part of our subconscious mind. The subconscious knows and perceives all, and is the connection to the true spirit within us. If not worked with and properly integrated, our shadow self can be expressed in severely imbalanced ways, such as when anger is suppressed or not used properly. Under such conditions, imbalance builds at the subconscious level and is then manifested in counterproductive ways. If we're not in charge of that part of the self, if we're letting the rampant ego take the wheel, we start doing harmful things. And anger is not inherently negative or bad. It's a vital human emotion. It needs to be channeled consciously and maturely. That's the integration of the shadow self. It's a tool. If we're not in charge of our own self and just running purely on emotion, it can become caustic and unstable, which can lead to more destructive behavior, whether of the self or others. The shadow self is always present, whether we choose to acknowledge it and work with it or not. Various methods of social engineering strive to mask and suppress our shadow self, allowing subconscious anger to turn into depression and eventually shame for not acting rightly upon it. And shame is the lowest level of consciousness in which a human being can dwell while still being physically alive. Without proper integration of the shadow self, we can become dangerous and useless zombies, basically. Hateful, fearful, shameful, unidimensional, mentally and emotionally broken nothings that the controllers of this world can manipulate. So do the shadow work and master yourself. Then you can become a conscious creator, motivated by conscience and care. So it all comes down to this. We need a massive shift in consciousness. A quantum shift. That means numbers are required. A quantum shift in human consciousness is required for humanity to become free of its self-imposed state of slavery. Unfortunately, this level of change is not an automatic process, nor even guaranteed to happen at all. Whether or not it will occur is a function of the human will to learn the truth and teach it to others. This involves enormous effort, dedication, and persistence. A certain amount of people need to be doing this great work of helping others to receive truth. We also need to stay healthy, physically, as well. Take in natural, holistic foods. Keep the body in good shape, and you'll keep the mind healthy. Mind and body are inseparably connected. Mental acuity is directly fostered through physical activity and care for the physical self. This is a vitally important part of self-knowledge that should never be neglected. Real-world change requires physical work, and physical health is critically important if one ever must engage the self-defense principle. You have to truly, deeply care about the entire human condition. The dark occultists, when they do their thing at Bohemian Grove, have a ritual called the cremation of care. It's sickening and psychopathic. They're basically saying, we need to burn away our conscience so that we can continue to do what we do without any instances of guilt. and we can't be like that. We must be willing to develop the level of care that is necessary to learn the spiritual principles of natural law, apply them in our lives, and end our condition of slavery. We must learn this occulted knowledge well, and then teach it to others so that together we can meet the requirements to create what we all say we want for our future: peace, love, prosperity, and freedom. And all of this takes enormous courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing the right thing in spite of that fear. To do the right thing, you may have to make some hard sacrifices. You may have to leave an immoral job and suffer financially. You might have to be homeless for a while. These consequences are temporary, though, compared to the consequence of losing freedom. The Satanists will always do what's easiest, what's most comfortable, putting self-preservation above right action. We cannot live in the fear of chaos, consequence, or even death. We have to say no to evil at every turn, even if we have to suffer for a while. An internal quality like courage cannot be acquired from someone else. This has to be built like a muscle by training, and it can weaken if it is not practiced and used. We have to find the courage to sacrifice for human freedom, to get out of our comfort zone, and that's very uncomfortable. We have to be comfortable in discomfort, in how other people may see us. Exercise courage to speak out to others. Exercise courage to even face the truth and answer all the questions honestly. And again, that starts with self-respect. And then courage will come as we do it more, as we engage in these dynamics more in our lives. Use your voice. A different reality can be spoken into existence by us if we care enough to learn the truth, and then develop the courage and the will to take right action to defend the truth at all costs. So seek the truth and speak the truth. Use your voice. Who cares what others think? We don't do this work for likes or for followers. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it so that those who do want to change can find the necessary knowledge and support they need on this journey, and to hopefully create more teachers and wayshowers. We're still a paltry few, sadly. We do this great work because it is our shared responsibility at this time to help to awaken others by continuously speaking the truth unapologetically, even if we feel burdened by this task, and even if it makes all of those involved feel uncomfortable. Now, this isn't about proselytizing or converting people. It's about promulgating the philosophy of freedom. No one can forcefully wake up another person. All we can do is seek the truth and speak the truth. And we make it as easily accessible as we can and as easy to understand as we can. Whether someone wants to hear it or not is on them. Our job is simply to speak. If someone wants to slap the truth out of your hand, you pick it back up and hand it to them again. Keep giving them that opportunity. And sometimes it will feel futile and exhausting, but you have to press on. It's an act of love. That's what turning the other cheek really means, giving people more chances than they probably deserve. So never give up. Be persistent. Here's a quote by Thomas Paine. "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of men and women. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." It's all about persistence. You have to keep pushing forward no matter how hard the fight becomes. And here's a Buddhist adage to consider. There are only two mistakes one can ever make on the path to truth: not starting and not going all the way. You can't go halfway up the mountain and camp out. You have to keep going no matter how scary or weird the truth seems. So again, after we've done that great work within, we're then tasked with the one great work. After one has realized the truth regarding natural law and brought oneself into alignment with it, the one great work is what comes next. It is the arduous task of influencing others to go through this very same process of awakening. It is to help them realize that in supporting and condoning the legitimacy of authority and government, that they have actually been supporting and condoning the legitimacy of slavery, and that they were immoral for having done so. What the one great work comes down to is to get people to abandon their religions, the false and dogmatic beliefs which hold back the progress of consciousness by impeding the reception of truth and natural law. And here's a quote by Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. And that is the truth. Here's a quote from Donald McIlvaney from his book Toward a New World Order. In every declining civilization, there is a small remnant of people who adhere to the right against the wrong, who recognize the difference between good and evil, and who will take an active stand for the former and against the latter, who can still think and discern, and who will courageously take a stand against the political, social, moral, and spiritual decay of their day. And Thomas Jefferson said, "Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. That is the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty." So we have to take that stand. And we do that by being persistent moral educators. In order to do the great work effectively, you need to develop some skills. Today, the new literacy is technology and digital publishing. This is how we communicate the knowledge. But we have to become technologically literate. We need good organization skills. We need to learn how to publish our work. Learn programs like Photoshop or Affinity to help you create informational graphics. Learn programs like Keynote or PowerPoint to present your work. If you want to get into making podcasts or documentaries, learn audio and video technology and software. Write blogs, make a website. Make a site that can feature all of your work in one central hub. Connect with others, collaborate on projects. All of these things can benefit from some promotional efforts as well to make the information widely accessible and available. Now, you don't have to master every single one of these, but it wouldn't hurt. Do as much as you can. Keep learning, keep improving, expand your reach. Do what you can with what you have and strive to do more, and then do it. Understanding everything I've talked about today and applying these solutions, especially the original solution, is the golden key to the cage. It is our way out. And I don't say any of this because I think we're currently on the right course or that I think people will just magically change. The outlook does not look too good at the moment. Some things have improved, but we're still no closer to freedom. I talk about this stuff because it's the right thing to do, and because there's still work to be done, and that's the reason we should do anything. To do the right thing because it is right. Put the earthly or physical reward off to the side and simply look at what the morally correct thing is to do, and choose it for that reason, because it is morally true, correct, and right. Morality is doing what's right regardless of what you're told, Obedience is doing what you're told, regardless of what is right. So do the right thing. If we do that and inspire others to do that, we might find our way out of this mess. Out of all the mental, emotional, and physical prisons we've built for ourselves. And into the uncharted territory of true human freedom. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I hope I made some kind of difference in your mind and heart. What you do with the information, of course, is entirely up to you, but I hope it helps you in your journey. Be well, be wise, be true. Peace.